All right. So, you know, Elon Musk,
Yeah.
he tweeted about magic money computers.
Right.
And I think that was on like March 17th.
Yesterday. Yeah. March 17th, 2025.
Yeah. So it's got everyone, like, what does he mean?
It's so
A
interesting.
lot of people talking about this.
Yeah. Well, it really, kind of
What is he talking
could
about?
toss this question of, like, where is the future of finance?
Right. And like who's controlling things.
Exactly.
So that is what we're going to be talking about today. So it's funny because like this very of the moment thing that Musk is talking about,
Yeah.
it actually reminded me of this book that I was reading.
Oh, wow.
Um, have you heard of The Sovereign Individual?
I have. Yeah. It's a classic.
Yeah, and it's been around for a while. It was actually published in 1997.
Wow.
That's like almost 30 years ago.
Yeah. Way back.
And Mark Zuckerberg actually recommended it.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good way to look at these things that are happening today. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear how it connects.
Yeah. So today's kind of like a deep dive into this book, The Sovereign Individual, and how it can maybe help us to make sense of all this stuff, the economic shifts, the digital age, everything that's happening right now with, individuals and their power in the digital age.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So the sovereign individual. So back in 1997, almost 30 years ago,
Yeah.
what was their big argument?
So the big picture was that they thought digital technology was going to change everything about power.
Okay.
So it was going to move away from, like the big traditional institutions.
Like governments and stuff.
Governments, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially nation states, and move more towards individuals. So they saw this new type of person emerging, a sovereign individual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and these people would use technology to get more control over their own lives and especially over their finances.
Okay. So how would someone become a sovereign individual? What tools are we talking about?
Well, they were really into the potential of cryptography.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's like the digital encryption
Yeah.
that makes online transactions and information safe and private.
Right, so nobody can,
Hack into it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Or spy on you.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were also really interested in the potential of digital currencies.
Okay.
So the idea was these things were going to let people operate much more independently outside of the reach of governments and big banks.
So more control over their own money.
Exactly.
Because you don't need like the middleman.
Exactly. You take out that intermediary.
Yeah.
The middleman.
So did they break it down into specific areas where we'd see this like power shift?
Yeah, they definitely did.
Okay.
So, for example, in their chapter, The Information Revolution, they explain how all this information that's flowing online makes it almost impossible for governments to control it.
Right, it's like you can't put the genie back in the bottle once it's out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no more monopoly on information.
Yeah, and they talk about the end of violence too, right?
Yeah. The end of the monopoly of violence.
Yeah, that's another chapter.
They explore how technology could even challenge the state's role in keeping people safe.
So if they're saying this, like decades ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does that connect to what we're seeing today with Musk's tweet about magic money computers and, just the general interest in digital finance?
It's like they kind of laid out this roadmap to our current financial world.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, digital economies, decentralized systems, these are all trends that the sovereign individual was already talking about back then. And Musk's tweet, even though it's, a little cryptic, kind of gets at this feeling that things are changing.
Yeah, it's disruptive.
Yeah, disruptive, and that we might be moving towards new financial models, and tech is going to be driving it.
Right, and like you were saying how information is so important.
Yeah.
They were saying that back then too.
Yeah.
Like transparency, that's what we need.
Especially as those old controls start to loosen up, it seems really relevant now.
Totally. Okay, so, back in the 90s, they were talking about decentralized economies.
Right.
But what about AI? I mean, that's huge now.
Oh, for sure.
It's everywhere.
It's Musk's whole thing.
It is.
It's 2025's whole thing.
Yeah.
But, even though they didn't specifically predict the kind of AI we have today,
Right.
their main point about technology empowering individuals, that totally applies to AI too.
So how does that work with this idea of decentralized economies?
Well, they thought AI could be a big player in making those systems more transparent.
Oh, okay. How? Can you give us an example?
So think about blockchain.
Okay.
They were talking about it back in the early days.
Okay.
And now imagine AI systems that can look through all the transactions on the blockchain.
Okay, yeah.
Because blockchain is so secure and the records can't be changed,
Right.
AI can make sure everything is out in the open and people can trust what they're seeing.
Interesting.
So you could track things like government spending,
Oh, wow.
find anything fishy, and just give people a much clearer picture of what's happening with public money.
So that's like a huge step towards more accountability.
Yeah. I mean, there was a Forbes article from February this year that said this could lead to a 20% drop in financial discrepancies.
20%. Wow.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Huge. Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense for like governments and stuff.
Yeah.
But what about for businesses? Like, how does this idea of sovereign individuals and all this AI transparency affect them?
Well, the sovereign individual suggests that businesses should be looking into decentralized finance.
Okay.
So that's DeFi.
DeFi, yeah.
Basically, it's financial services built on decentralized technology.
Right. So you're bypassing the traditional banks and institutions.
Exactly.
Okay.
And by doing that, businesses could become less dependent on those old centralized systems.
So it's like a hedge against risk in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing this happening. CoinDesk reported in March that DeFi transactions jumped 25% this year.
Wow. So it's not just a theory anymore.
No, not at all.
Businesses are actually doing it.
It's happening.
Okay. So it seems like this book was pretty optimistic about the future.
Well, not entirely.
Okay.
They also warned that the big institutions, the governments, the banks, they're not going to just give up their power easily.
Right. Because they benefit from the way things are now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it seems like we are seeing some pushback, right? Like more secrecy from governments in certain areas.
Yeah, it's definitely something to watch.
Yeah. Okay. So Zuckerberg obviously saw something in this book.
Yeah.
But like, was everyone on board with their predictions?
Oh, not at all. Some people thought it was too idealistic.
Right.
Too focused on individuals and not enough on the community.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had questions about, could a completely decentralized world really work?
Right.
What happens if the government loses too much power?
Yeah, good points.
But even with those criticisms, the core ideas of the sovereign individual are still really useful, especially for businesses that are dealing with all the uncertainty in 2025.
So it's like a guidebook for navigating the new world.
Exactly. And figuring out how to use AI and these decentralized technologies strategically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so back to Zuckerberg for a minute. What was it about this book that resonated with him? Like, how does it fit with his own vision for tech?
Well, he's always been a big believer in decentralized platforms.
Right, like the metaverse.
Yeah, exactly. Business Insider reported on this back in 2017. His vision for the metaverse at Meta is all about giving individuals more control and freedom in the digital world.
Okay, so that definitely aligns with the sovereign individual.
Totally.
Yeah. And hasn't Meta also been trying to be more transparent in how they operate?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, remember their 2025 AI ethics report?
Right.
TechCrunch covered it. They're making a real effort to be open about how they're developing and using AI.
Okay, so that lines up with the book's message about giving individuals more information and control.
Definitely.
Okay, so now let's circle back to Musk and his magic money computers. You said there's been a lot of talk about it on X.
Oh, tons. Over 10,000 mentions.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not just a tech thing anymore. Everyone's thinking about who's really in charge of our financial future.
So Zuckerberg recommending this book from almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That kind of adds weight to the idea that these are important issues.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's such a big name in tech. It makes you think these concepts from the sovereign individual are really central to what's going on right now.
Okay, so let's bring it all home.
Right.
Musk makes this comment about magic money computers.
Right.
And gets everyone talking about government transparency on X. So how does the sovereign individual fit into all this?
I think it explains why we're even having these conversations in the first place.
Okay.
Back then, they were already predicting that governments were going to lose some of their control.
Right.
And that individuals were going to gain more power through technology.
So it's like the book provides a way of looking at the financial uncertainty that a lot of people are feeling. We've done deep dives on related stuff before, like gold, not cryptocurrency.
Right.
And this book gives you the bigger picture, like the underlying forces that are at play.
Mm-hmm.
And these ideas aren't just theoretical anymore.
No, they're playing out in the real world in 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, look at DeFi. It's a perfect example of people moving towards a more decentralized financial system.
Like the book predicted.
Yeah. It's not just an idea in a book anymore.
So can you paint us a picture of this?
Sure.
Like imagine a sovereign individual in 2025.
Okay.
They've got their AI tools.
Yeah.
And they're trying to address these concerns that Musk is talking about.
Okay, so let's say they're using some AI program to analyze government financial data.
Okay.
Maybe this data is on a decentralized platform so everyone knows it's accurate.
Right.
And they can use their AI to do their own audit,
Yeah.
find any waste or anything suspicious, and that creates a level of transparency that might not have existed otherwise.
So they're using technology to hold the government accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's directly related to what Musk is hinting at with his magic money computers comment.
Yeah, okay.
It's about who controls our money
Right.
and how much we really know about what's going on.
So this book from 1997, it's not just outdated, right? It's still relevant today.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, ideas are influencing things like DeFi, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
But also like the whole digital nomad trend.
Oh, well.
People using tech to work and live wherever they want.
Free from those traditional boundaries.
Exactly. We could do a whole other deep dive on that, actually. If you're interested, check out WebID per Teen White.
Oh, okay, cool. So as we wrap up here,
Yeah.
what's the one big thing you want listeners to take away from this deep dive into the sovereign individual?
I think the main takeaway is that Musk's magic money computer is a comment. It wasn't just out of the blue.
Okay.
It's part of this much larger conversation that's been going on for decades.
About financial transparency and individual power.
Exactly. And the sovereign individual really helps us understand the deeper forces that are driving all of this.
Yeah, it provides context for these very current debates.
It does.
Okay, so final thought for our listeners.
Okay.
AI is constantly evolving. Decentralized technologies are growing.
Right.
So given all of that, how do you think the balance of power is going to shift in the future between individuals and those big institutions?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's something to really think about.
Yeah, and the sovereign individual gives us some great starting points for that conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It really is.